Hi, it's Rob over at 46 Douglas. I'm just going around the house looking at the roof line. As now that we have the scaffolding for the stucco up, it's much easier to see sort of straightness in the walls, especially along the fascia boards. This one's actually not so bad over the length of the wall. However, this front wall, as you look along the front wall, is sort of in and out, mostly straight-ish, but not straight and parallel to the wall. And down there at the end, it actually starts to wave in and out. You can see that it's got a little bit of a wow to it. So I took a measuring tape over here, and right at the front left corner of the house, I'm over by the street here, by the driveway. So the front left corner of the house, I've got 15 1/4. Less than 4 feet away at this point here, I've got 14 3/4, which means I've dropped ½ inch over just under 4 feet. And then 3 feet over from that, I dropped another ½ inch to this point where I'm 14 1/4. So in less than 7 feet, I've dropped a full inch from the fascia to the wall, from here to there, and it goes down to 14 1/8 just inside the inside corner here. So the soffit would be 14 1/8 all the way up to 15 1/4 over this length of wall. Then starting at the build out here, I'm at 8.5 on this end, 8 3/8 as we go along, 8 inches, about 5 feet over, about 2 feet from the far right hand side, I'm at 7 3/4. So from the left side where I was at 8.5, I'm down to 7 3/4, which means it's dropped 3/4 of an inch over, I'd say about, this looks to be about 8 feet. And then by the far right hand side corner of the build, I'm down to 7 7/8, so it actually jogs back out a touch. Then we get back to the front wall, the original front wall of the house, where I'm at 13.5, over about 1.5 feet, 16 inches, 18 inches, I'm at 13 3/4, which means I've already jumped up 1/4 of an inch. Then you keep going over here, about, let's say 6 feet away, I'm at 14 inches. So I've gone from 13.5 to 14.5 an inch over about 6 feet, and by the then it remains at 14 inches. So I've got 14, 14, then it drops 13 3/4 and 13.5 by the end. So over this, let's say 10-foot wall, I've dropped ½ an inch. On the front section of wall, I've dropped about 3/4 of an inch, and the last section of wall I've dropped over an inch, just on those independent sections of wall. The underside of the fascia does have a gentle dip, but I don't think it's something that you're necessarily going to see from the street. It is gentle enough that we can probably treat it with the fascia board and the aluminum work, if we let the guys know to make sure to do it as level as possible. Again, we've got a couple rafters here that are sticking down longer than the actual fascia board, so they need to get lobbed off. Then we turn the corner onto this wall, and I don't know if it shows up on camera as well as it does sort of to the naked eye, but this wall jogs in and out quite drastically over certain distances. So again, starting right at the front corner of the house here, I've got 13 3/4. 16 inches away, I've got 13 3/8, so just over 16 inches. I've already dropped 3/8 of an inch. I'm at 13.5, which is almost the same as that. A couple feet away, so I'm now about 5 feet, maybe 6 feet from the corner of the house where I started at 13 3/4. I'm down to 13 1/4 here. 13 3/8, same thing-ish. 13 3/8, 13 3/8. Then there's this awkward jog where the two rafters were not, the two fascia boards were not strapped and nailed together. So I've got 13 3/8 and 13 side by side. So that needs to get straightened out. They need to put a blocker across here and sit these so that they're flush together. Then all of a sudden it jogs to 13 1/8, 13 1/4, 13.5, and I did a little tick line every 16 inches, and I measured every 16 inches. So these are 16-inch increments where we go from 13 1/4, 13.5, 13 7/8, 14 inches, 13, then back down to 13 3/4, then back down to 13.5, 13.5, 13.5, 13.5, 13 1/4. So I've gone up 1/4 inch here over 16 inches, then it remains approximately 13.5 for a good couple feet, maybe 4 feet. Then it goes up another 1/4 inch over 16 inches here. Then it goes up, so basically I've gone up a ½ an inch over 4 feet in this span here. So this fascia board, again, is doing a little bit of this all over the place. Again, a 1/4 inch in the long run, you're not really gonna see, But if you stand here and you look, if you're standing underneath the house and you look up at the fascia, even with your naked eye, I'm just trying to get rid of the exposure of the sun here, even with your naked eye, you can see that wobbliness. And if the aluminum guys go and tack their fascia board, the fascia aluminum on this, you can see especially right there's a big wow in the wall or in the fascia, and that's really going to show. Most drastically, and this is where we actually brought out the string line to show how drastic it is. This entire wall bows in, the entire fascia bows in 2 inches in the middle section of wall, and it drops about 3/4 of an inch over here. The line's about 3/4 inches high. Then it comes up a little bit more. Then again over here, we're down 3/4 of an inch below the line, and then over in the far corner, we're tight underneath, back up to the underside of the rafter. But more importantly, if I stand here and look along the wall, if I can just adjust the focus here, you can see I'm starting, I'm just gonna push that, make sure that's nice and tight. I'm starting touching in at the wall here, and immediately the straight line, the string lines starts wandering off the fascia board pretty drastically, to the point where, it's hard to focus here, about, let's say 4 or 5, or maybe 5-6 feet away, I'm already 2 inches further in towards the house than the string. This is 2 inches right here. So from here to here, I'm 2 inches where it started off, and you can see how drastic this is from the corner. It stays at about 2 inches, and then obviously this, again, we've got 2 fascias that aren't matching, and they need to be nailed together and blocked. And then it starts to slowly, gradually wind back down over a much greater distance back to being tight over here. So again, you can really see with the string line how it's mostly at that end of the roof. Again, this side's much more gradual, and then it really bows in, and then it immediately whips right back out at the far corner. And if you actually look at the roof, where the way they shingled towards the end of they put the shingles at the end of the plywood, you can actually see that the shingles stop on a bit of a curl there. And that, again, that I can see that with my naked eye standing here looking at the roof. You can definitely see it down on the ground looking up. And again, it's pronounced enough that even with your naked eye, you can see that if you were to put fascia on here, you'd have a really wide fascia getting narrower, and then really wide back at the end again. It's going to look terrible. So we have to do something to even the fascia out, so that the whole fascia is straight and uniform across the back wall. And we also have to do something about the fact that it dips in 2 big spots 3/4 inches below a straight line. So we definitely need to do something about this to get this rectified, so that when the stuck goes up and we go to put the aluminum work on, that everything is nice and uniform and straight and level, because we have a crown molding of stucco that's going to be installed dead level, and anything that is out of level is going to show like a sore thumb relative to the stucco trim, which has to be installed level. So if the fascia board and the soffits are wobbling up and down like a roller coaster against a pin straight top crown molding, you're going to see it stick out like a sore thumb. So we got to get this these rafters, well, the rafters or the fascia board, whatever needs to get adjusted, they need to get adjusted as soon as possible, particularly that big wow over there and along the front wall. All those measurements have to get evened out. And over here, again, where this particular fascia is wandering all over the place, not all over the place, but less so than the front and the back, but is wandering. This back wall is definitely the worst, and that's why we put the string line in it, just to show how drastic it is. Thanks so much.